Hi.
Hello. In the last segment, it appears that Hayden Covington, the Society's legal counsel, is even more explicit than Fred Franz had been before him in the testimony that there's something even more important than truth. Although it is important that God's organization preach truth, it's more important that they be unified. And so we have to ask, is this unity at all costs? And that's exactly where the barrister goes in his questioning of Covington. Unity at all costs? Answer, unity at all costs, because we believe and are sure that Jehovah God is using our organization, the governing body of our organization, to direct it, even though mistakes are made from time to time. Question, and unity based upon an enforced acceptance of false prophecy? Answer, that is conceded to be true. Question, and the person who expressed his view, as you say, that it was wrong and was disfellowshipped would be in breach of the covenant if he was baptized? Answer, that is correct. Question, and as you said yesterday expressly, would be worthy of death? Answer, I think. Question, would you say yes or no? Answer, I will answer yes, unhesitatingly. Question, do you call that religion? Answer, it certainly is. Question, do you call it Christianity? Answer, I certainly do. Question, in connection with mistakes, you were cross-examined at some length as to differences of view which might have taken place in the authoritative exposition of the scriptures over the years since the foundation of the society, and I think you agreed there had been differences. Answer, yes. Question, you also quite frankly agreed that persons who at any time are not prepared to accept authoritative exposition are liable to expulsion from the society with such scriptural consequences as they may entail? Answer, yes. I said that and I state it again.
So now Ray Franz comments on this. Unity, according to the testimony of this society representative, can require of a Christian that he accept as true what he believes God's words shows to be false. No matter what he reads in the Bible, he is not to express that if it does not coincide with the organization's authoritative teachings. While it may be clear to him from God's own word that is not enough, he must wait until the change issues from the proper source. Excuse me. The head of the organization, the governing body, not from the bottom upwards. No matter what he reads in the Bible, he must wait for the proper source, the governing body, to tell him what is acceptable for belief and for discussion. The justification for such a remarkable claim? That's a question. There must be unity at all costs, even if it must be based on an enforced acceptance of false prophecy. To fail in this respect is to merit disfellowshipping and be worthy of death. In effect, while one may read the Master's own words in writing, he cannot accept or act on them if the Master's professed slave tells him something different. This is, in plain language, the organizational concept advanced. Yet a third witness took the stand. This final headquarters official testifying was the Secretary-Treasurer, Grant Suter, and his testimony includes these statements of official position.
Question, what is the position of a company servant in that respect? Answer, he must have met the qualifications that have been previously testified to: maturity and understanding and spiritual understanding, and an ability to read the congregation. I think that must be lead the congregation. It's misspelled R here. Read the congregation. When he says company servant, we should note that he's talking about what we would call overseer, congregation overseer.
Okay.
There used to be one in those days. He must have that training, Brother Suter goes on, that training previously mentioned in the theocratic ministry school, be a leader in the field ministry itself, be apt to teach, and otherwise have qualifications that the scriptures laid down. Man cannot lay down qualifications that the scriptures do not, you see. Question, That is in general terms, but to come down to actual practice, he must attend the theocratic ministry school, must he not? Answer, yes. Question, and there he finds the library? Answer, yes. Question, isn't he expected to familiarize himself with the publications of the society? Answer, he certainly is. Question, indeed, can he, in the view of Jehovah's Witnesses, have an understanding of the scriptures apart from the publications of Jehovah's Witnesses? Answer, no. Question, only by the publications can he have a right understanding of the scriptures? Answer, that is right. Question, is that not arrogance? Answer, no. Question, you heard the evidence about 1874 having been found to be wrong as a material and crucial date, and about 1925 being a wrong date. On these two items, acceptance and absolute acceptance as truth was imposed upon all Jehovah's Witnesses at the time? Answer, that is right. Question, you agree that that was acceptance of the false? Answer, no, not entirely. The points that were wrong were false because they were in error, but the overall result is what is important. All through these years of the ministry of Jehovah's Witnesses, since the formation of the society, the Pennsylvania Corporation, there's been a constant turning of the hearts and the minds of people to God's Word and its righteous precepts, and giving them spiritual strength to stand up for what they know to be right, to hold high Jehovah's name, to announce His kingdom. There is no comparison between the incidental points that have been corrected compared with the importance of the main thing, the worship of Jehovah God. That has been inculcated in the minds of Jehovah's Witnesses and countless other persons all through these years.
Incidental points. That's a bit cheek, I think. You know, you're saying that this is going to happen in 1925 and that's incidental?
It's in the word of the barrister, it's arrogance.
Yeah.
And it's very plain that all three of the officials do not feel that they have any culpability, responsibility, or accountability for any of the false things they not just believed but published.
And they imposed it not only on Jehovah's Witnesses but really on the public, because they say if you don't accept what's been spread by them, if you don't accept them and join them, you're culpable. You're going to die at Armageddon because you didn't follow them.
Yeah.
Even though they've made these kinds of errors, the person too is supposed to unfailingly trust you and believe that God is using your organization.
So you're actually saying that the people who tested your words, that is the Watchtower's words, by their Bible and rejected your words,
which we later find out are in error and you admit are in error, are still being judged because they didn't accept you.
So you can see total reversal of the Beroean principle here. What is being used to test what? In effect, you are using God's organization to test God's word.
Yeah.
Whereas you publicly say, as Fred Franz did in the testimony, that you are observing the Beroean principle, but the Beroean principle is you test human claims against God's word, by God's word, not vice versa.
Yeah, and they do vice versa.
But now people are being tested on the basis of their acceptance of God, of man's word over God's word.
I mean, in one of these testimonies he said, we are sure that God is using this organization. Well, you know you're going to be off to a bad start if you're going to make that claim before it's tested.
So Ray feels he has to analyze this, and in the next few pages he spends some time going over this transcript in the light of the Watchtower's own public claims, i.e. in its own official publications, in future segments.
Mm-hmm.